Okay, back again. We've got some, let's see, we've got some nice tacks on the top and right down the very bottom, poking the stick up inside. Got some nice tacks on those slideways, so they're not going anywhere. Had a bit of a think about how's the best way maybe to support this from buckling in when I cut into it. So what I might do is I might just tack weld the base on and have that in place and use that to stiffen it up so that when I do the final cut through, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be well supported by the base. Alright guys, so we just marked it out. Number of scratches, taken the best fit, centre popped it, and then just put a centre into it just on the drill press. So what we'll do is we'll set this in place. I reckon that'll do us. Plate's a little bit woofy, but yeah, no dramas there. I cut from the inside out. When you get stuff laser cut, you'll see that it's a nice finish, but the laser cutting process tends to nitride harden the first couple of thou of this, so trying to cut into that way, there's a good chance when it's trying to get through that hard case that it's going to grab and flick itself out. So cut it from the softer side out and finished up. So that's worked out really well. So we'll get that into play now and we'll see how we go. Alright guys, we've rotated this around to get that squared up, and that's pretty spot on. So what I need to do now is take a reference point from here out to here and scratch a line down either side, rotate it around 90 degrees and do the same with this, and that's going to give us our mouth dimension. When the load goes onto these blades, they're going to be wanting to push up against the side of that cutout so that they're not putting any strain back onto the pin. So it's fairly important we get that reasonably close. So as I said, we've got that squared up that way. Down here, mark the same thing again. I'll witness punch it and we'll mark out our heights up here, and we can get set up with the grinder, little cut off wheel, and we'll start cutting that out. I've been thinking I may leave that base off there. If I put the base on, I've got nowhere that I can put finger clamps if I do decide to set it up in the milling machine. So just clean those edges up. I'll see how good I go with the grinder and see how close we get it. And if I'm feeling okay, I'll finish it off with that. If not, I'll pop it over in the milling machine and just give that a lick down and around just by eye onto those witness marks. So. Alright guys, we're back again. Change your mind. I'm not going to do the cutout just yet. What I'm going to do is do the pre-bore for the pivots for the blades. So they've got to come out to 28mm diameter. So all I've done there is I've pre-marked it out, but just popped a dead center in there, lined it up with the center line there just by eye, lined it up with the edge by there, come across with 30mm and up to 25mm, and it's pretty spot on. So because this is on the arc here, we can't use a standard center drill. So what I'm going to do there is kick that off with a slot drill and open it out with that, and then we'll do the final sizing bore with the boring head and get that as close as we can. So probably better to do this now while you've got a lot of meat still on the tube before we start hacking it out. It gets a little bit more flimsy, a little bit harder to hold down. So particularly with the slot drill, it's going to be cutting on one side to start with, so it's going to be trying to flip this thing around. So the more stability in this, the better. So we'll get a slot drill arrangement set up and set the tail. Right, that worked out well. We'll get set up with our little boring head next, and we'll take that out to 28mm, and then we'll flip it around and we'll do the outside. Slow that down a bit, we're getting a bit of vibration in there, which helping matters. And that has taken exactly 1mm off as we'd expect. So we're up to 26.35 now. Alright, I'll flick you guys off and then we'll come back on once we get out to the final bore. Just a quick mention too, I've got some telescopic gauges, and I use these all the time. They're really handy for doing those bore sizes and then transferring onto an outside mic. And the set I've got are pretty good. I had one dog set, which was this is the 15 to 32, I think, and it was a 3/4 inch and a quarter anyway. And it kept sticking. I could never get the right feel for it. So I found this one on eBay. It was out of Israel actually, and it's a Starrett, and sorry, a Moore and Wright. Starrett, Moore and Wright. And the feel on this unit compared to, and they're a reasonable brand that I've got, is chalk and cheese. I can get such a good feel. You need to be very, very, very light on the lock up here without moving the thing around too much. And it flicks out beautifully. So, yeah, you can sort of see the difference between quality machine tools and ones that are a little bit cheaper. But obviously, those of us have our workshops here. Aren't going to be spending thousands of dollars on equipment. And if you're like me, you shop around the Chinese supermarkets to try and get the best deal you can for what you want to do at home, just realising that it's not going to be the bee's knees. But yeah, all right, we'll come back when we're doing the final bores. .010, so gosh, that's close enough for what we're doing. All right, we'll get cleaned up, and tomorrow after work we'll get in and we'll cut this mouth out and get set up for the final machining on that. And we're getting close to starting to do some final weldings in here. Right, guys. Before I cut this out with the grinder, I'm going to just put a relief hole in each of the corners so that that grinder's got something to run into, and I'm not going to overrun my line work. So I'm just going to put these in radially. It's just to give it a bit of relief when I cut it, and it'll all get cleaned up when I mill it out. So just putting it through around about a 4mm diameter pilot hole, and I'll pop that through with an 11mm bit in the corner. flick you guys off to save myself some battery power and some memory, and I'll come back on and ready to start set up. Alright guys, we're going to attempt to cut this out maybe about 3 mil away from the line. I was thinking maybe putting a fence down there and guiding it up, but we'll just see how we go by hand. If it's going to get too hard, I'll put a fence in, but start some cuts and see how we go. That's worked out pretty well. Alright, I'll flick him off and flick you guys off. I'll finish the rest of this out. I'm only going to do one side at a time so that I've got maximum amount of clamping force down here. The reason why that was ricking around so much last night was the setup that I had, so it'll be one that's only going to be a little bit flimsy. I'll keep the full force with the full about half barrel diameter when I cut this one out. We'll come out, cut this one out and do the same thing. Alright, got to bring you blokes in. Done a cut down here, a cut across the top, just running down this side here. Got to come out to about 44 millimeters roughly. I've centered this up and I've come either side of the center, 10 mil carbide ML bit in there. So we'll just keep travelling down this road here. It's kind of a bit like a pork chop, but we'll see how the vibration goes. Okay, we've finished off the second window and that's all been machined out. Got an awful lot of vibration out of this one. It's obviously fairly flimsy the way that I'm holding it. Not a lot of meat there, and yeah, couldn't get rid of the chatter. The only way I could really get rid of it was to climb it, which I don't really like doing, but it was the only way I could really cut it without it going to pieces. Yes, I'm happy with the way this has turned out. It's all relatively straight and square and nice and neat. So the next thing I want to do is to make up the bushes that go in here for the pivot points. So next job is we'll turn them up and we'll start looking at how's the best way to get them located and locked into place so I can weld them. So anyway, so far so good. We'll keep at it. Okay, so we've drilled this out. Any sort of metal bolt or something a capsule in this case, when they upset or roll the threads onto these, they come out slightly bigger in diameter than what the shank is. I really want to make the shank a good bearing surface, close bearing fit to the hole. So that's exactly what I've done. What I am going to do is just take a little lick off the OD of those threads just to bring them back to that same diameter as that shank. So anyway, I've got the an ML set up here. It's 8 ml diameter to suit the head. We'll just take it very easy and we'll just slide that. Reasonable fit for our screw, it is, so that's good. Alright, we'll turn the final OD and clamp that off and get it face. Okay, so that's number 1 welding bush done, and we'll do the same with the other one. We'll just face them off. I'll set them up in the mill to cut back the chamfer on that, sort of match roughly the radius of the pipe, and we'll see how we go. Alright guys, I thought before I weld these bushes in, I might just cut them off at the angle to match that radius of the pipe we're going to weld into, and that way I can get a little bit of a weld prep, a little bit of a bevel put around there and tidy that up. So I'll do that to both of them. I put it in there, just marked the spot to see I was looking at the 21 degrees as per the drawing, and yeah, the heights are pretty well spot on, so fairly happy with that. So we'll go ahead, lift that off, do the same with the second one, and we'll go ahead and get them set up with another jig set up to get them welded into place. Okay, let's have a look at the setup for getting these bushes into place. So I've done a prep grind on that, and the next important thing is to try and get that set up in relation to that face along there. So what I've done is I've just got a bit of scrap bar that I had lying around, and a bit of 6mm flat, which is the thickness of the blades, and I've clamped that up hard against the slide rail to pack it out. That gives me my distance to set my bush out from the face of the slide, which is where the blade is going to butt up against. And then I can, if I need to, I'm quite happy to put a spacer washer in or whatever I need to make that up. Just drill a hole in that flat there, just so that I can bolt that through. So that's locked that in there really tight now, so I can get in there and get some good welds in. And I'll try and get a weld in the back there on the inside as well before I break the setup. So I'll do that for both sides, and then we'll look at getting the base welded into place and then cutting that through. Then we've got a little top section insert that we're going to weld into place, and then I've got the caps that I'm going to drill and tap into that top plate, and then I've got a spacer block that I'm going to put underneath here, which will restrict the movement up of the blades, so I can set them so that when I'm pushing down, they're going to push out in the right direction, and they're not going to try and swing back on themselves. So it's important to get that setting block in the right place, but shouldn't be too much drama in that. So that's the setup I'm going to use for both of them. It's nice and rigid, looks pretty good. I should be able to get a good weld in there and get them locked into place. Alright guys, so we've got the setup ready for welding. We'll get this welded in, and we'll try and get some good welds in around the inside as well. And we'll see how we fare. Spots there, and just before I break the whole show down, just showing you the weld joints in there. Try and get a bit of that shadow out of the way. Pick up, so a little bit more to do around that one, and that one's done, but no, really good penetration, and reckon they'll be great. The one on this side, I've just buffed out, just got in there with a burr again and just beveled that face out, but once again that's a good pin weld right through there, so that's come up well. Alright guys, I've gone ahead and welded most of the show up, and the blades fit in there really well. So I've got the base is welded on and finished. I've gone ahead and welded all the slideways in, and they're all done. So that's looking pretty good so far. And that's sort of how the blades are going to look when they're expanded out into the hole to do that cut. Next, all we've got to do is just weld the caps on to here, and then we can drill and tap that and do the setting block. Alright guys, what I think we will do next is I want to do these bushes into these fellas. So they're a diameter 12 bush. I have an M8 thread tapped into them, and we'll make them thick enough to give around about 1 mil clearance on the rod that goes back. So they're going to protrude, the rod's 6 mil, so they'll protrude 7 millimeters past, and we'll see how we go. So I've just measured these up, and they're coming up at around about 12.04 mil. So we'll make them a light press fit in there. I'll put a weld prep on the back of them, and then we'll weld them into the back onto the side there. So I'll pre-drill part of the way through. We'll finish the hole through once they're all welded in place, and then we'll tap them once they're in place then too. So that'll just become a 12 mil diameter bush that'll fit nicely on those pivot rods. Righto guys, fairly straightforward turning job, just some little bushes we're going to make. I'll make these 12.1 on the OD, that'll make them a reasonably heavy press fit into those holes, and if it's too tight we'll just file it down to suit. Put a bevel on one end. I'm going to make them 13 mil long, that'll give us a mil proud so that we're not binding up on our pivot rods. One thing I like to do if I'm doing any welding is to use black bar, known black bar, that's around about 0.2% carbon in it. Fairly straightforward, non-exotic stuff, good for welding. My suggestion is if you don't know what the bar is that you've got, go and buy some known stuff. My younger brother was doing some welding in a large boiler, putting some bushes in, and the guy machined up all the bushes. Yep, it's just black bar, it's what I had here. So he's gone and welded them in, and then found an awful lot of boundary cracking happening around, and it's ended up as that they're a chrome moly steel. So disastrous in a boiler. So the only stuff I'm doing, I know this is black bar, it's all Rio bar. So not Rio bar, it's just old black bar that's been bent up for doing some Rio work. But yeah, it's very plain carbon steel. Alright, so we'll machine these down and turn them into something. Rightio, so first little bush done. Hot. Alright, we'll do the next one. We'll face them off to length, put a weld prep on them, and we'll press them in and get them back to drill and throw and tap them out. So okay, so I've made up this dummy strap at 143 centimeters, which is what I had on my drawing. I might even take that down to 142 when I actually do the straps. Look, it's very close. It's probably not worth worrying about. But that's the dummy strap in, and it sucks up in there and then just gets caught in here. Now, as I mentioned, I sort of realised that after I'd done the DXF files for the laser cutting, so I'm just going to sculpt that out a little bit by hand so that that clears, and we'll be right. But it works really well. I haven't got an arm on that one yet, that's just hanging around. What I'll do is I'll flip that over. So what I've done is, you can see the bush in there, so that's in place now. I've been prepping, I've welded that in from the back, so that's worked out really well, and the same with that one there. So far, so good. Okay, so we're going to drill these arms that are going to keep that parallelism arrangement happening with the blades when they spread out. I'm going to put the centers at 142 as opposed to 143 that I had on my drawing, and the reason for that is I did notice they were just a touch off being parallel with the base of the bell mouthing tool, so another millimetre back should screw it. I'll take these out, deburr them, and we'll get on with the next operation, which I'm looking at is welding a little bit of that top skirt into place. So get these deburred, get set up for that next little weldment, and then we can start looking at putting the retaining caps on. Okay, so we're back outside, we're going to weld this up. What I'm going to do is leave this ring fully intact and just weld up to a certain point and around. Once we've done that, I'll then cut those sections away. They've got to clear for the blades to go in. Okay, so we've welded in these skirt plates here. They've been fully welded around and also around the inside as well. So plenty of weld on those, not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to use this transfer punch set just to mark the locations for the drilling and tapping. This thing. Alright, done. We'll get those holes drilled and tapped for M8, so I'll strip this down just quickly. You can sort of very smooth action, really happy with that. Just going to finish off the pin sets on those, but we'll get this down, get them drilled, get the caps on, look at what the packing plate or the set plates are that we need to put underneath to restrict the upwards motion, so that the blades sort of sit around about yay when it's being retracted. It's probably going to be about 8 mil. What the thickness of the plate is. Okay, we'll set up, and now that we've transferred those punches through, we'll tap this out and we'll drill it out to 8.5 for an M10 tapping tap to get those. We're back again. Ran out of memory on my camera again. Have to do something about that. Right, so as you can see, we've drilled and tapped the holes for the keeper plates. So what I've also done is on the bottom of the keeper plates, I've put that setting block. Now all that setting block does is prevent the blades coming up so far that they over center, and you want to make sure the blades are going to bias the direction that you want them running in. So it's going to pull the blades up and just keep them parallel with the outside or the diameter of the pipe. So they're not sticking out, they're not going in too far. And as I said, just keep that bias in the direction that they're going to go. Otherwise you're going to bind them up, they're going to try and come back the other way. So that's the idea of those little setting blocks. So to do that little setting block, all I've done there is I've made up a little setting plate and I've just drilled it and beveled it right out with a chamfering tool, and that'll go onto there, and that gets welded into place. Same as what that was. It's just a little plug weld. So I'll go ahead and get that done, and that's it, just about done, just about finished. Alright, so I've got the setting blocks on, welded into place. You see how that is sitting nice and parallel across the table there. So those arms that I pulled back that extra mil, back to 142 centres, that worked out quite nicely. You can see inside, I've got a line in there, but I've still got a bit of bare land on this socket header cap screw. So it's important to make sure your cap screws, you're not rubbing on thread, you're actually rubbing on the body or the non-threaded part of those cap screws. So I'll put some packing washers in there. I'm going to use nylock nuts in here, and I'll cut them off the length so that we don't have anything sticking out. I don't know if I can get the action going, but that's it, pulling up. That sits in nice and parallel to the OD of the pipe, so the 6mm setting blocks that I put in there worked out really well. I just on the last cut now, with maybe a 3/4 of a mil land on that. You can certainly see the difference when you take this butt of the hammer off. Harmonic vibration just comes in and gets worse and worse. I'm just going to feed this in a little bit each time, just to take out the very, very slight parallelism error I've got on it, and it is only very slight. There we go, she's done. Okay, so that's our final cut finished, and we've got around about a 1mm land on that. I'll just take a little bit more off with a grinder just to touch that edge off. So, I'm really happy with that. That's going to give a really nice edge. So we'll do the same with the next one, and that's just about everything finished bar the assembly and just fitting things off. Alright, we've got everything assembled. You can see all the fasters inside there, nylock nuts, and everything else is done up quite well. We've got a little bit of sloppening, which is what we want. Now, I've bored down a hole, and I've gone down about 1.3 metres. Hard to see down there, but yeah, it's down 1.3. I'm expecting I'm going to go around about 1.8 when I do it under the shed, so we'll see how it goes. I did have a bit of trouble with the auger getting stuck on the sides, so it'll be interesting to see how Ned goes down inside there. I might have to splay these out a little bit further to open that diameter up a little bit. We'll see how we go. So as you can see, I've nicknamed it Ned. The similarities with Ned Kelly, although he didn't have a very good ending. I hope we're going to be a little bit more successful with this one. We'll see how we go. Alright, well, we'll get set up and we'll poke it down and we'll give it a go. Alright, second last hole. After just over 2 months of doing this. So I've just got the bell mounting tool, old Ned down inside, and it's done a fantastic job. I learnt that fairly early on. My forearms were starting to get very sore. Look at another way that I could grab that to get it out. tried with a few things and the still cinch was the best, so I'll keep it going with that. I have had it once where I filled it up too much and just couldn't get it out, so I had to use a jack up under the nut for it to jack it up out of the hole. So lesson learnt, don't take too much of a bite at one go, because it does get stuck.